Well, good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning, and I'm very glad that you've joined us this morning. We have a lot to cover. We have announcements from the Trump transition team that we'll be getting to, kind of breaking news, some breaking news on Liz Cheney as well. We also have updates on New York State. Governor Hochul recently making some, I think, provocative comments. Also, the pushback on the billions given to the Buffalo Bills by New York taxpayers. We'll be discussing that as well. Let's get right to it. Comments after yesterday's broadcast. If you're new to the show, you see that number on the bottom of the screen. You can reach out and weigh in on the topics of the day. Sometimes they come in a little after the show and we miss them, or sometimes you just, in the dead of night, you think, I want to respond to something going on in the news, and I appreciate that. First off, over a year ago, I reported drones doing the same thing as the ones over New Jersey, New York. I was living in a town on the North Carolina and Virginia borders. I reported it to the local sheriff's office in Caswell County and the FAA. Thank you very much. I know this isn't a new story. It just seems that, and we will be talking about drones, don't worry. It seems to be put into focus recently because it's been plaguing New Jersey specifically. And we're going to talk about it in depth a little bit later on in the show, so make sure you stay tuned for that. Comment from a different viewer. Frank, I'm assessing the crowds on Marcus Street, and I believe the Moose Crew, yes, the Moose Lodge was ringing the bell yesterday. There was a competition, if you recall, with the Salvation Army of Corning, and a 16-year tradition where Democrats and Republicans face off and ring the bell for a good cause. And it's all a friendly competition. It's a nice way to kind of heal the divide after elections, and they've been doing it for 16 years now, so 16 years worth of elections, healing that divide. And it's because they know at the end of the day, it all is for a good cause, an amazing cause, in my opinion, the Salvation Army of Corning. So Monday, the Democrats ring the bell. Tuesday, the Republicans rang the bell, and I had an opportunity to speak with Assemblyman Phil Palmisano yesterday as he was ringing the bell. I do think, to Mayor Boland's point when he was on the telethon for the Salvation Army, where he said that the Democrats always get the worst weather day. Well, I don't think that's historically accurate. I know he was making a joke, but I will say yesterday he may have been right. The Assemblyman having great weather while he was ringing the bell, and that's not always the case. Take it from someone who knows when ringing the bell. But the reason I mentioned this long-winded story is because the Moose Club, they were ringing the bell at the same time, a little bit staggered, but from 3 to 7, a little bit down the road, because so many people want to give to the Salvation Army this year. So many people understand the need in our community. So there was a kind of a double booking. So they didn't get Centerway. They actually got right around Walnut. Well, it was Walnut and Market. And that's what our viewer has to say. The Moose Crew is really outdoing the Republicans, which means that the Democrats were probably a distant third. Walnut and Market is the bomb location. Sign us up for next year. I will put in the good word. I'm glad that location worked out good. I know that people have rung the bell there in the past, Walnut and Market, and I wondered how it would go. I'm glad to hear that it went well. People having so much fun with the Salvation Army Telethon, just like we did, or Salvation Army in general, just like we did with the Telethon. If you did not join us all week, and you'll have to pardon me, but just so proud of the numbers that we raised here on Frankly Speaking for the Salvation Army of Corning. With a total of $10,162.92. That's what we raised here during the, Frankly Speaking, second annual Salvation Army Telethon, and that's because of anonymous donors that said, you know what, we're going to match up to $5,000. So people went above and beyond and said, you know what, I was thinking of giving to the Salvation Army. I don't know how that affected the Republican or Democrat numbers, but I was thinking of giving, so I'm going to give because it'll be doubled by those anonymous donors. So again, $10,162.92. Now, when it comes to the Republicans and Democrats challenge, they never publicize who won. because that's not what it's about. It's a friendly competition. They know behind the scenes, and it gives them some bragging rights. If word does leak to me, I will hint at the answer to that. I will hint to who was victorious, but no promises there. So thank you for those comments kicking off the broadcast. Okay. Another update, a story that we've somewhat covered, and I think many are watching with fascination. Well, the two astronauts who have been suspended in space for 6 months, and there's been some real questions about health concerns. Well, they're now facing yet another delay and will not return back to Earth until at least late March. That's according to NASA. I said that's strange. NASA officials late last night. American astronauts Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams have been stuck in the Boeing Starliner capsule since their June 5th takeoff, where they were, this sounds like a very bad episode of Gilligan's Island, where they originally were planned for just a 1-week mission. Yes, what was supposed to be a 1-week tour will almost conclude a year later, June 5th to March, some point in in late March. I know the big question is, how do they prepare? I mean, 1 week, you plan for 1 week, you get your affairs in order for 1 week, and now you're looking at almost a year. Their Boeing vessel, however, was continuously plagued with issues, including leaks that made their thrusters malfunction. So NASA opted to have the spacecraft return in September, but without its passengers. The Starliner was Boeing's first astronaut flight to the ISS. The company's executives previously fought to have the astronauts fly back on the spacecraft on its initial return, but NASA determined that there's no way to do so safely. SpaceX, well, of course, Elon Musk, a lot of talk of SpaceX, called to delay the original scheduled February rescue launch. Because of this delay, the duo won't return until the end of March, or maybe now they're saying even early April, nearly 10 months after their departure. Most space station missions only last 6 months, with very few reaching a whole year. So that is coming from the New York Post. So the NASA astronauts will remain stuck in space until at least March, as they were told to prepare for a 1-week mission. All right. Another breaking story from overnight. This coming in late last night. You may not have heard the exciting news, but President-elect Donald Trump has picked Heisman winner, who was also a one-time Senate candidate, Herschel Walker. He will be the Bahamas ambassador. The incoming commander-in-chief lauded the Georgia great, and I'm going to read his statement coming from the transition team. You know that Herschel Walker was a big Trump supporter. He ran for the United States Senate in hopes of representing Georgia back in 2022, but lost to Democrat Raphael Warnock. Walker, who is now 62 years old, is a football legend at the University of Georgia, where he won the Heisman Trophy, given to the best college football player that year. That year was 1982. He played 15 pro seasons, including for the Dallas Cowboys, before he was traded to the Minnesota Vikings in a blockbuster 1989 move. He also had stints with the Eagles and the Giants. He also played 3 seasons for the New Jersey Generals of the United States Football League, which was owned by Trump for a time before the league disbanded. He recently went back to college and completed his degree in housing management and policy after leaving for the pros 4 decades ago, and he recently graduated about a month ago. He said on Fox News, quote, "There were some kids that said, my parents were in college with you when you were here, and I was sort of like a grandfather there. But as I said, it was wonderful to be there. I love all the kids that I was around, and it was a lot of fun." This is on his graduation. He joked that now that he's a college graduate, he needs to find a job, which President-elect Trump was glad to give him, as he will now be the next ambassador to the Bahamas. This is what President-elect Donald Trump had to say in a statement released late last night. "I'm pleased to nominate Herschel Walker as United States ambassador to the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Herschel has spent decades serving as an ambassador to our nation's youth, our men and women in the military, and athletes at home and abroad. A successful businessman, philanthropist, former Heisman Trophy winner, and NFL great, Herschel has been a tireless advocate for youth sports. During my first term, he served as co-chair of the President's Council on Sports, Fitness, and Nutrition. Herschel has traveled to over 400 military installations around the world, removing the stigma surrounding mental health. He represented the United States at the 1992 Winter Olympics as a member of the U.S. bobsled team. Congratulations, Herschel. You will make Georgia and our entire nation proud because we know you will always put America first. So Herschel Walker, the next ambassador to the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, perhaps, for lack of a better term, a lesser-known pick was made by President-elect Donald Trump late yesterday as well, and that is Nicole McGraw will serve as the next United States ambassador to Croatia. Nicole is a philanthropist, businesswoman, and world-renowned art collector. She opened her first art gallery in Palm Beach Gardens in 2006 and has since built a client base that spans the globe, as well as a successful hedge fund specializing in fine arts investments. So congratulations, Nicole, writes President-elect Donald J. Trump. So there is your somewhat breaking news just to kick off the program. We're also going to update you on Liz Cheney. If you did not hear yesterday, again, a lot of news coming in late these last few days, but the House GOP panel did call for Liz Cheney to be investigated for, quote, criminal witness tampering. We went into depth on that when the story first broke, giving you what that exactly meant, who she was talking to. We'll go into that a little bit. I don't want to get too much in the weeds on it because you are informed on this, but I'll tell you what this means for Liz Cheney. We do have some updates. As I said, on New York State issues, we'll also be getting to drones. Yes, drones, the major issue of the day. So stay with us. Just getting warmed up here on Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV, Big Fox. We will be right back.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
Frankly Speaking Roof Cam is brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact Boss Security for all your business and home security needs.
Are you sick of looking at your bathroom but don't know where to get started? Bath Planet understands that home remodeling can seem like a daunting task. Allow us the privilege of showing you how easy getting a new bathroom can be. Our certified design team will help you design the bathroom of your dreams and give you a price that's good for an entire year. Go with the company that people trust. Bath Planet, 2 locations serving the entirety of the Twin Tiers. Call today.
Hot Tubs. Final 4 days of the year at Hesselson's Arnett Mall location near Center Court this Thursday through Sunday. No reasonable offer refused. Plus, 0% interest-free financing options for up to 60 months. And free delivery and takeaway of your old hot tub. Save $1,000, $3,000, even $5,000 off Hesselson's already low prices on their American Whirlpool hot tubs and swim spas. Why wait? Everything must be sold. Come in early for the best selection and start making every day better. And remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
I'm Mary Offord. I've lived here for 70 years, but I do fine right here in my house, and I want to be here as long as I can be. And I feel comfortable knowing that if something happened to me, someone would know because of the cameras that are installed in various spots in my home. That has been a wonderful gift to me to be able to have that security and that support from Full Circle America, and that's what it's all about.
The best 2 hours of NFL coverage, starting with Fox NFL Kickoff at 11.
This is great TV.
It is caught! Then at noon, take it to the next level on Fox NFL Sunday.
This kid has it all.
Touchdown! America's #1 pregame show. The best NFL pregame show.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. You're watching Frankly Speaking. So the House GOP panel has called for Liz Cheney to be investigated for criminal witness tampering. For this criminal witness tampering includes Cassidy Hutchinson, a first-term White House aide to then-President Donald Trump. They communicated, this is allegedly, via the encrypted Signal app before her explosive and later largely debunked public testimony in June of 2022. That's according to documents previously released by the House Republicans. Citing those communications, the Committee on House Administration Subcommittee on Oversight announced yesterday that they will issue an interim report calling for the Justice Department to investigate Cheney as Trump prepares to retake the White House. Now, the timing on this is interesting before Trump takes office, which I think is a good thing because what the media is going to say, of course, is that this is Trump going after his enemies. This is a supposed enemy list, but I'll quote the report from Chairman Barry Loudermilk from Georgia, saying evidence uncovered by the subcommittee revealed that former Congresswoman Liz Cheney tampered with at least one witness, Cassidy Hutchinson, by secretly communicating with Hutchinson without Hutchinson's attorney's knowledge. This secret communication with a witness is improper and likely violates, 18 U.S.C. 1512. Such action is outside the due function of the legislative process and therefore not protected by the speech and debate clause. Now, these records made public back in October, and it was interesting because it was not something widely reported by the mainstream media because obviously Liz Cheney was being used as someone that they deemed very helpful to Kamala Harris's campaign. I think in hindsight, many Democrats are questioning that move now because it created a scenario where Democrats who said, wait, I thought Cheneys were the worst. We were told the worst for years, both Dick Cheney and Liz Cheney. Now we're supposed to be excited that she supports Harris, and it created kind of a division within the Democrat Party. So I think that move has been, in hindsight, by many people questioned. But at that time, this was praised as a historic endorsement. So the information coming out about this alleged criminal witness tampering was somewhat buried by the media. But they revealed that Cheney and Hutchinson used the Signal app to swap messages to arrange calls over the app, which is used by Washington journalists and politicians for its end-to-end encryption, which inhibits interception by authorities. That's normally a red flag right there, I would say. The content of the voice call is unknown, but one message showed Hutchinson provided Cheney with a screenshot of her then attorney, Stefan Pastino, suggesting she not cooperate with the panel that investigated Trump's role in the mob attack by his supporters challenging the 2020 election results. Hutchinson has been in the midst of 6 transcribed interviews with the Select Committee, and her communication with Cheney on June the 6th, 2022 preceded her dramatic public testimony 22 days later. Much of her testifying was later called into question by other witnesses, most notably her testimony that she was told that Trump was so enraged when Secret Service agents refused to take his motorcade to the Capitol on the day of the attack that he lunged for the steering wheel. So again, as I had mentioned, we had went through this in depth when it first broke. I don't want to get into the back and forth of dates and the like, but just know that now Liz Cheney, they're calling for an investigation for criminal witness tampering. The New York Post editorial board says this absolutely merits investigation. For the record, the Committee on House Administration Subcommittee on Oversight, their call for the Justice Department to investigate evidence witness tampering by ex-Representative Liz Cheney is not revenge, because that is what the media will present it as. It is not revenge. It's basic good government. The committee's report cites evidence that Cheney, as vice chairman of the then Speaker Nancy Pelosi's Select Committee on the January 6, 2021 Capitol riot, secretly reached out to a star witness, as I had mentioned, and coached her on testimony without her lawyer's knowledge. Now, maybe there's some other reason Cheney was messaging with Hutchinson via the encrypted Signal app, And maybe there are reasons Hutchinson's testimony conflicted with other witnesses, particularly her gossip about Trump lunging for the steering wheel, as I had mentioned. But secret communications with a witness are far outside the rules for any investigator, including members of Congress. So the committee was plainly right to flag this matter for the Justice Department's investigation. Though the Biden department sure won't touch it, and even the Trump one might have bigger fish to fry. They may not want to take it on because Trump may not want to be perceived as seeking revenge. Congressional hearings shouldn't be purely partisan attacks on political enemies, but that's what Pelosi's January 6th quote-unquote probe amounted to, complete with Hollywood advice on staging the show. An apparent witness tampering in advance of that show only adds an outright criminal element to the perversion of House proceedings. It seems Cheney, like everyone else, ranting about protecting democracy in the last election, doesn't have a clue what that word really means. And that's what a lot of this boils down to, the hypocrisy of constantly talking about threats to democracy, and yet we had so many examples, and I think this ultimately played to Trump's favor, but the examples of actual threats to democracy, the lawfare, you had instances of trying to keep Trump off the ballot, you had this type of allegedly shading dealings when it comes to the January 6th subcommittee. So again, I think it boils down to the hypocrisy. More breaking news when we come back from over the night, and then we are going to talk about drones. So stay with us. This is, Frankly Speaking, here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Trust your smile to Elmira Family Dentistry, the best dental care in the region. Their Wand STA anesthesia system provides a pain-free way to take care of any dental problem. Their latest digital x-ray systems provide a highest standard diagnostic record. Elmira Family Dentistry offers routine and deep cleanings, fillings and bonding, crowns, implants, root canals, and Sure Smile orthodontics. Elmira Family Dentistry at 311 West Church Street in Elmira. Call 607-733-6825 today.
It's hard to explain what this feels like. Moving piles of earth, towing up to 4,000 pounds, cutting millions of blades of grass. We could keep trying to put it into words, but nothing compares to experiencing it for yourself. You just have to get in the seat.
It's the Black Friday sales event at Lindsay Equipment. Get 0% financing for 60 months on in-stock gators, zero-turn mowers, and compact tractors.
Welcome to Frankly Speaking, talking to the people that affect your life, that affect all of our day-to-day lives. This is something you're not going to get anywhere else. We've got a lot to offer. There'll be a lot of news, local, regional, national, really the things that affect you. And I think you'll be glad that you tuned in. So think of it as radio on TV. Frankly Speaking, live, 2 hours long, starting at 6 a.m. on WYDC TV Big Fox. This is history making.
The Big Fox website is here now. WYDCTV.com. Local and national news that keeps you informed and involved. WYDCTV.com. Today's weather up to date and in your town. WYDCTV.com. Sports news, local events, and health stories that affect you. WYDCTV.com. The Big Fox website. Your news here now. WYDCTV.com.
Thank you again to Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs as we overlook historic Marcus Street, the same place, of course, that we are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. I am your host, Frank Acom. So we've been talking about, and I know we're covering a lot this morning and no real way to segue, but we've talked a lot about Syria and Bashar al-Assad. Well, a mass grave containing the bodies of at least 100,000 people tortured and killed under the brutal dictatorship of ousted President Bashar al-Assad was discovered outside Damascus. according to the head of a U.S.-based Syrian advocacy group. I don't want to get into the graphic details this morning, but it is being reported that they found the regime's victims recently. This news actually breaking late yesterday afternoon. 100,000 is the most conservative estimate. It is being reported by Reuters of the amount of bodies they believe were dumped at that chilling site. It is a very, very extremely, almost unfairly conservative estimate. So saying that 100,000 just to say that, to be on the safe side. To keep this in mind, this is the largest grave uncovered since the Stalin era. They also warned that it is one of just 8 mass graves created by Assad's fallen government. The mass grave identified at El Katafa is littered with multiple trenches, estimated to be about 19 to 23 feet deep and more than 10 feet wide. So saying that that is a conservative estimate, they said the grave matches the description from funeral officer personnel who helped unload the bodies and later escaped Syria to spread the word of the atrocities committed under Assad. Again, I don't want to get into the graphic nature of this, but the grim discovery is believed to be one of the largest mass graves in modern history. A Stalin-era mass grave in Ukraine is estimated to be the burial site of more than 200,000 executed political prisoners, according to the BBC. So that is just an update as we broke the story last week about al-Assad being ousted. Also on the international front, Israel and Saudi Arabia have reached a normalization breakthrough, according to Haaretz newspaper. This clearing the path for a hostage deal. I know, and I could tie these two together only because Syria, actually Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu visited Syria yesterday, and they are making moves in Syria. Well, Netanyahu believes the Saudi crown prince's limited interest in Palestinian statehood and a vague commitment to a, quote, path towards statehood will secure domestic and political support for a ceasefire deal with Hamas. So that's an update on another story that we've continuously brought to you. Okay, so let's talk drones. I know this is the hottest topic going, and I would love to hear your thoughts on the drone issue. Boy, the government has not done a fantastic job of getting the news, or the information, I should say, out to you. That has created a kind of vacuum where it has raised many conspiracy theories, and then they're critical of the conspiracy theories, but you can understand when people want answers. Joe Biden made his first comment, President Joe Biden made his first comments on the drones, saying, quote, they pose no sense of danger. Nothing nefarious, apparently, but they're checking it all out, Biden said. We're following this closely, but so far, no sense of danger. There's a lot of drones authorized up there. This again, President Biden. I think one started it and everybody wanted to get in on the deal. Going with that kind of copycat theory that we've heard that's been floating around. Biden's statements echoed his administration's assertion that the public needn't worry about the unidentified flying objects, which they claim are mainly manned aircrafts. That's why they sent out that announcement to not shine lasers at them or try to shoot them down in concern, which I don't know, that they could be manned aircrafts. I think that's interesting because not everyone, of course, is seeing airplanes and what are they saying, stars. They are seeing drones. There's no denying that. The FBI, FAA, Pentagon, and Department of Homeland Security said in a joint statement Monday that there's little reason for concern. This is from that joint statement. We assess that the sightings to date include a combination of lawful commercial drones, hobbyist drones, and law enforcement drones, as well as manned fixed-wing aircraft, helicopters, and stars mistakenly reported as drones. So it's almost everything but terrifying drones. The first drone sightings were reported in New Jersey all the way back on November the 18th. Since then, the feds revealed that they have fielded more than 5,000 tips, of which roughly 100 warranted further investigation, according to the federal agencies. Despite the government's assurance that the drones aren't sinister in nature, there has been a chorus of calls from elected officials for an explanation. If you want to quash the conspiracy theories. Maybe now is the time to give some answers to the American people. Drone detecting devices were deployed in New Jersey over the weekend, according to Governor Phil Murphy. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. Chuck Schumer pointed towards some technology that could be used and also called for more transparency. President-elect Donald Trump calling for more transparency and saying they're covering up the truth about the sources of the drones. The government knows what is happening, Trump said. Look, our military knows where they took off from. It's a garage. They can go right into that garage. They know where it came from and where it went. And for some reason, they don't want to comment. And I think they'd be better off saying what it is. Our military knows and our president knows. And for some reason, they want to keep people in suspense. But again, President Biden's saying there is no sense of danger in the mysterious drone sightings. Then you go a step further with the New Jersey governor saying, calm down. So you get no answers about drones flying essentially over your house if you're in New Jersey or in your general area. You get no answers, and yet you are told that there's no danger, but we're not going to give you any information and to calm down. There is also concern with people possibly firing weapons at what they believe to be unmanned aircraft systems, but could be manned aircrafts. That's a statement being released by the FBI and the New Jersey State Police. But the governor himself specifically saying, calm down. And again, pointing to this idea that it could be almost anything but drones. I find that very interesting. So calm down. This is, by the way, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention his name, Phil Murphy. New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy saying, first of all, I'd say calm down. There's no evidence of anything nefarious here. Nefarious seems to be the word of the day for politicians. We never say never, but take a breath. He also noted that drone sightings have been down in recent days, with rain and clouds in the forecast. Now, the governor also said the federal government has sent 3 very sophisticated radar systems overseen by really sophisticated individuals to help solve the mystery after existing equipment proved insufficient. One of the, thank you for the waves coming in, by the way. One of the common, and I don't like to misuse the term conspiracy theory. I think that's overused. But one of the theories, let's say that, has been about drones perhaps searching for some radioactive material or some type of gas leak, something that could prove harmful. And when it comes to nuclear, really kind of terrifying, right? Well, according to a New Jersey mayor, he warned that the troubling drone sighting over the state may be linked to missing radioactive material. Although federal officials say the amount poses no serious threat either way. Belleville Mayor Michael Melham said the drones flying in a grid-like pattern over his Essex County township appears to be looking for something. What might they be looking for? Maybe that's radioactive material, he told Good Day New York. It was a shipment. It arrived at its destination. The container was damaged and it was empty. Oof. So this is one theory being floated about. The U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission issued an alert earlier this week regarding a piece of medical equipment used for cancer scans that was lost in transit December the 2nd while being shipped to southern New Jersey. The device, we don't need to go through all that. The radiation source is deemed less than a Category 3 on the International Atomic Energy Agency scale, which means it is very unlikely to cause permanent injury to individuals or contain a very small amount of radioactive material that would not cause any permanent injury. But some have suggested, as we had mentioned on the program the last few days, that maybe it's something bigger than that, looking for some type of some type of nuclear weapon, some type of chemical weapon, perhaps. Again, these are theories being floated, coming from, mayors, coming from talking heads in the media. But all of this, to President-elect Donald Trump's point, all of this is unnecessary if answers were just given to the residents of New Jersey and to the American people, because now they're even saying that congressional hearings or conversations really issued nothing. Nothing really new came from them, that nothing was really learned. And there's been a lot of theories thrown around because of that. New Jersey Representative Jeff Van Drew suggested the drones were coming from an Iranian mothership, if you recall. Many people have asked the question, is it China? After we saw the China spy balloon floating across our country for quite a long time. But the statements being made by government officials, and specifically Biden and the Biden administration, is essentially nothing to see here, nothing to worry about. Well, I've got a few other updates on it, and feel free to weigh in. What is your thoughts on the drones being spotted in New Jersey? Now, as it was said, kind of down a tick because of the forecast. But what will it ultimately prove to be? And do you accept what Donald Trump is saying, that Biden and the government knows what it is but will not say? And why will they not say? We've got some updates on that as well from various talking heads as well as politicians. So stay with us. We'll be right back. Frankly Speaking, here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Attention, Elmeron may lead to vision loss.
If you have suffered vision problems after taking Elmeron to treat bladder pain, call the Hearn Law Firm. Elmeron may be responsible for your vision problems, and you may deserve compensation for your injuries.
If you took Elmeron and now have vision problems, call the Hearn Law Firm at 888-308-3866 right now. You could find out if you qualify in less than 2 minutes. Call 888-308-3866 for your free case review.
The holiday season has arrived, a time where more than ever our thoughts turn gratefully to those who serve our community and those all around us. May the holiday season end the present year on a cheerful note and make way for a fresh and bright new year. Here's wishing you a happy holidays. This holiday greeting is brought to you by our friends at Tom South Corning Collision, Sheddon's Wholesale, Suburban Propane, Corning Building Company, Empire Bricks, Hector Wine Company, and Apple Ridge Senior Living.
Now you can leave home and leave the tanks behind with Inogen, the portable oxygen concentrator that moves with you.
This little box changed my life. I can now do all those things that I want to do. You just press the button here, and there's my oxygen.
Inogen portable oxygen systems are small and light and deliver up to 12 hours of medical-grade oxygen on a single charge.
Now that I've got my Inogen, I've got my freedom back. I'm back to living again.
Try an Inogen system free for 14 days.
Call now.
I'm Nancy O'Dell. This is Crime Expose.
It's chilling, it's haunting.
We knew exactly who it was.
Blood stains on her shorts.
See you in September.
It's your season of Sherry.
Having a good time has always been my #1 goal. I tend to get crazy. At my age, I should not be jumping up and down like that. And if you don't know what I mean, ask your mama. The young ones, y'all like, we don't know what you're talking about. But I promise you, in 30 years, you will.
It's the best time in daytime.
Weekdays at 2 p.m. on Big Fox.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Frankly Speaking. Back to the discussion on drones. Yesterday, Middletown Mayor Tony Perry blasted federal officials for a hearing or a briefing that was being done on drones to kind of ease these various politicians, these various elected officials' minds. So it was over Zoom, and it was with New Jersey mayors and officials from the White House, Homeland Security, FBI, and the FAA. Tony Perry said, in all honesty, they provided us with no new additional info. In fact, it felt a little bit dismissive. He said the officials rambled on endlessly, and he called the meeting a waste of time. And I think this is an important note, and this is why so many people are focused on this story. Until they can tell me where these drones are coming from, I do not subscribe to the idea that they're not a threat. That's an interesting way of putting it. Until you could tell us otherwise definitively, not in the way that you're doing so that, oh, calm down, don't worry. That doesn't answer the question. Now, House Foreign Affairs Committee Chairman Michael McCaul said Tuesday that he believes that some of the unidentified drones are spy drones from China. After Biden administration officials insisted many of the aircrafts are innocent commercial aircrafts, they're hobby drones, they're stars, or anything but nefarious drones, as is the word of the day. So again, this coming from the House Foreign Affairs Committee Chairman, Michael McCaul. Quote, "We want answers, but the response I'm getting is we don't know whose drones these are. I was with the NASA administrator, Bill Nelson. He said that these drones have been reported over military sites, military bases. I would not think those are friendly. I would think those are adversarial." And we had that story for you quite some time ago of the drones flying over and around military bases. We need, continuing what his comment was, Mike McCaul, Representative Mike McCaul from Texas, from Texas. "We need to identify who is behind these drones. My judgment, based on my experience, is those that are over our military sites are adversarial and most likely are coming from the People's Republic of China." And this would prove, historically, I should put it this way, historically, that would be where I think most fingers would point, would be China, because of the spy balloon and other moves they've made to continue to spy on us. McCaul added, "I believe they're spy drones, and the PRC in Communist China is very good at this stuff. We know they bought land around military bases. This would be very consistent with their policy over the past couple of years." Yes, that is another hot button issue that really the media hasn't focused on, but this purchase of large swaths of land by China around our military bases. "We're not getting answers, and I think it's because our government does not know who is behind them, and that is very disturbing to me." Yes, it is very disturbing that they may not even know, that it could ultimately end up being China, but that the government does not know where they come from. They seem to think that most of them are American-based commercial. It's the ones over the military bases that I can't explain, and they can't either. And that's something that should be focused on laser-like, but again, seems to be a shrug of the shoulders. I don't know if it's become that prevalent from China that our government almost accepts it. I mean, I think that's a fair question to ask. I mean, look how long the spy balloon was allowed to flow around our country. Now, a national security expert, a veteran soldier and national defense expert, believes that if the Pentagon is refusing to reveal the source of the drone activity, it's likely because they are involved. See, we're giving you all sides of the coin on this morning's broadcast. Mark Kankian, a retired Marine colonel who is an expert on defense and security for the Center for Strategic and International Studies, said usually when they don't say anything, it's because the information will embarrass them in some way. That's an interesting point. It's entirely possible that they tested unmanned aerial vehicles and created public hysteria and now are embarrassed to say it was us. Well, that's a good point. Maybe they pushed it too far, kept experimenting with the unmanned air vehicles. And then when the public backlash started, they're too embarrassed to say, oops, you caught us. That's an interesting theory on it. One of many theories. One conceivable thing is that they, meaning the Department of Defense, are using some mechanism that they don't want to publicize. He went on to say, he told the New York Post, that drones fall into 3 risk categories, with most benign or semi-benign, and a small percentage classified as malign. Malign would be the equivalent of aerial vandalism. They would be people snooping around or hobbyists trying to disrupt communications. It's conceivable that some small numbers of them are foreign intelligence drones, but most foreign powers have satellite systems in place and don't need to rely on drones. These include manned aircraft on legitimate flight patterns. He described semi-benign drones as those belonging to the hobbyist who is curious to see what is on the other side of a fence, as not trying to be malicious, but still doing something they shouldn't be doing. All right, there is our update on drones this morning, folks. Feel free to weigh in at any time. on what your thoughts on all this are. I know yesterday we had some very great comments from viewers suggesting the fact that no one is talking means that it is something nefarious at the end of the day. I do like that theory that it was our own government testing out something, and now that it caused this hysteria, they're too embarrassed to say, don't worry, it was us the whole time. Interesting thought. Do you subscribe to that? Which of the theories do you subscribe to? Love to hear from you. Right now, we got to take another break. Boy, this show's moving right along. Hour number 1 almost in the books already. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Hot tubs, hot tubs, hot tubs. Final 4 days of the year at Hesselson's Arnett Mall location near Center Court this Thursday through Sunday. No reasonable offer refused. Plus, 0% interest refinancing options for up to 60 months. And free delivery and takeaway of your old hot tub. Save $1,000, $3,000, even $5,000 off Hesselson's already low prices on their American Whirlpool hot tubs and swim spas. Why wait? Everything must be sold. Come in early for the best selection and start making every day better. And remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
I'm Nancy O'Dell. This is Crime Expose.
It's chilling, taunting.
We knew exactly who it was.
Blood stains on her shorts.
See you in September.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. They, of course, are in Horseheads. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Foxes. We broadcast live from the Hesselson's studio. Yesterday we brought to you the story, and it's starting to get more attention. As a matter of fact, when we first started talking about it on the program, it was very early on in our broadcast. It was I want to say it was probably some of the first broadcasts we had of Frankly Speaking. We were talking about the Bills' new stadium and the backlash at Governor Hochul for how much taxpayer money she gave to the stadium. And yesterday, we learned how much the Pegula family, the owners of the Buffalo Bills, made from having this investment into a new stadium. Something like added $2 billion to their worth because that put more value to the Bills. Well, the New York Post, the New York Post has an editorial. And it's a point that we made yesterday because many people get frustrated over this. Because if you look at it, you're talking billions, hundreds of billions of dollars given to, I'm sorry, did I say billions? Hey, that's a government slip. We gave, I think it was $850 million in taxpayer cash to build this new stadium. And why there's always so much criticism over this is because the taxpayers who are footing that bill for a stadium for an NFL team that is making a lot of money, all NFL teams are making a lot of money. One of the sticking points is always, so when the stadium is up and built, I, as a taxpayer, will not be able to afford a ticket to take myself and my family, myself and friends to a game. We won't be able to afford it. Or if we can afford it, we can't afford such things as, a soda, a hot dog. But since this $850 million taxpayer handout, the team's value has skyrocketed. It was worth $3.4 billion at the time of the initial giveaway, where Governor Hochul promised this money back in 2022. And wow, it was a perfect example of losing a negotiation, because all it took was Pegula to say, yeah, we're thinking about maybe moving to Texas, even though there was certain things in the contract that would have made it very difficult for him to do so, as long as New York had to have it in good faith trying to help them to stay there. But anyway, push that aside. And Hochul caved instantly in giving all that taxpayer money to the Buffalo Bills organization for this stadium. But back at the time of the giveaway, the Bills were worth $3.4 billion. They are now worth $5.8 billion. So after the NFL rule change, letting private equity buy stakes in teams, Pegula has sold two 10% chunks of the Bills. One to Arctos Partners, another to a consortium led by NBA legend Vince Carter. For those keeping score at home, that's $1.16 billion to Pegula. Who could have seen it coming? A state government makes a deal handing public monies, taxpayer money, to a sharp-eyed, mega-successful businessman who then turns around and leverages the handout to line his pockets. Yes, anybody could see this. The people who couldn't see this are anyone capable of basic reasoning. Now, I know this is tough for some people to talk about because I know you're a Bills fan. Many. I've seen it here in the comments. And I understand that. But we're just looking at this from the newsworthy value of how much money was given for the stadium and what we've learned since that time about what the Bills are making. Though Pegula did donate to the Cuomo-Hochul campaign in 2014, this move looks more like Hochul simply caving. I think it was caving. I also think there's a point there about, quote-unquote, buying votes. And by the way, we're going to talk about her in just a moment. She had some really interesting comments. What time is it? Really interesting comments yesterday that I think are going to intrigue you. That's our Governor, Kathy Hochul. But it doesn't seem to be politically motivated. It doesn't seem to be because Pegula said, oh, here's a bunch of money to run for re-election. It looks more like Hochul caving, and I would say trying to get the support of Bills fans, trying to get the support of voters in that area at a time. Listen, the last go-around, the last time she ran, Lee Zeldin came very close to defeating her. So she realizes, especially coming up, and I know this is a little preemptive, but looking at 2026 when she's up for re-election, she's got to do everything she can because she's going to have primary challenges, numerous ones, from some pretty high-profile people like Richie Torres, Representative Richie Torres, on the Republican side of things. So after going through a kind of a bloody primary battle, she'll have to face a Republican, and Republicans made all that headway, as we saw with the results from the presidential election and the inroads that Trump made in New York after Lee Zeldin did so well in the last governor's race. So she's obviously has some concerns. So if she can throw money at various issues that she thinks can score her votes in the long run, she's happy with it. But this did look, as said here, caving. As she caves on issues big and small, from crime to congestion pricing, because Pegula threw a tactical temper tantrum and threatened to pull up stakes. And maybe, as a Buffalonian herself, letting hometown boosterism get the better of her. She insists her husband works for the Bills concession stands, had nothing to do with it. And it's, the whole, he doesn't hand out the hot dogs. It's the whole operation. How's that? Whatever the cause, the result is the same as all of her policies. More pain for the already hurting average Empire Stater and more joy for the connected fat cats. Yes, the billionaires keep getting richer, as is mentioned numerous times, and the taxpayer can't afford a ticket when the stadium opens to go to a game. So that is piggybacking off the story we had of Hochul yesterday. We're going to tell you about what Hochul had to say about the presidential election, which I think you'll find interesting. We do have some political updates to get into the next hour, so I hope that you'll join us for the next hour as well. But we do have one more segment left in this hour, frankly speaking. So please stay with us. We will be right back.
diamondback rattlesnake.
It's in the name.
Name a low-calorie food you might make your edible underwear out of.
Salmon.
Watch it weeknights. Share it the next day.
Wild caught Norwegian teriyaki.
Share in the fun. Weeknights on Family Feud.
7 and 7:30 on Big Fox.
And Missy face off in
Why can't we watch DuckTales? Because we don't learn anything.
Book Smarts versus Street Smarts.
Is it working? Are you feeling motivated? Very.
It's the battle of twins.
Life is so confusing. I always hoped it would be easier for me when I grew up. It's gonna be all right.
Visit Boss Security in Horseheads today for all your business and home security needs. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio on Marcus Street in Corning. Thank you for all the comments coming in. How about this one? I like this comment. This is a comment from a viewer. I can't help but notice that no drones fly between 6 and 8 a.m. It's clear that drone pilots are distracted by Frankly Speaking. Yes, that's when they take their break and see all the news of the day, what they need to be focused on, and how close officials are getting to them. I agree with you. Thank you so much for that kind comment. All right, Governor Hochul. I was going to save this for the next hour. You know what? I think I am going to save this for the next hour because I did have one other New York State update that, and because I'm looking at the time and we are nearly out of time for this hour, there's an interesting piece. You can go to the Empire Report if you want to find out more. But we had talked about Anthony Constantino. He's the CEO of that company Sticker Mule. And he was kind of the attention during the election season because some Democrat officials tried to shut him down or shut down a sign that he had on his building that said Trump Vance 2024, and his light, because of the light, they said it was distracting, et cetera, et cetera. So he kind of made a name for himself. He said that he was inspired by Elon Musk to run for Congress. On an interview with the unconventional GOP candidate who is hoping to replace outgoing Representative Elise Stefanik. And that should be an interesting race. Conservative district, so you'll have a lot of Republicans facing each other. He is best known for erecting a giant sign over his novelty supply company's Amsterdam headquarters than he is for policy ideas. Well, he's new to the game. This coming from, well, I found it on Empire Report. You can find it this morning. But he's hoping to change all of that with a campaign for outgoing Representative Elise Stefanik's North Country seat in the 21st Congressional District. The vocal and viral Trump supporter has millions waiting to be spent in a campaign account and is now going on a charm tour of the North Country's GOP bigwigs, who are slated to spend the next few months deliberating over who is the best Republican to take up Stefanik's mantle. Stefanik has yet to endorse any candidate in the race, though, and that it's understood that her voice will weigh heaviest in the race. Oh, this was with City and State. Excuse me. That's who it was with. So kind of interesting. He was inspired by Elon Musk. You know, just an update from a story that we brought to you just the other day. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Hour number 2 coming up. Hour number 1 already in the books. I hope that you'll stay with us and be a part of it. We will be right back.
Have you been unable to work for over a year due to a mental or physical disability?
Were you recently denied Social Security disability benefits? Great news. You may be eligible for money, back pay, relief.
If you've been pre-qualified and diagnosed with a recognized condition that prohibits you from working, our lawyers can file a claim to get your disability benefit.
Call us today and find out more.
Call now, 844-617-0440.
Hustling plus overbooked plus bustling plus cleaning overlooked. It all adds up. With Mary Maid's professional cleaning services, you'll have one less thing to worry about. Mary Maid's. Relax. It's done. Plus too busy plus bustling plus in a tizzy. It all adds up. With Mary Maid's professional cleaning services, you'll have one less thing to worry about. Mary Maid's. Relax. It's done.
The holiday season has arrived, a time where more than ever our thoughts turn gratefully to those who serve our community and those all around us. May the holiday season end the present year on a cheerful note and make way for a fresh and bright new year. Here's wishing you a happy holidays. This holiday greeting is brought to you by our friends at Tom South Corning Collision, Sheddon's Wholesale, Suburban Propane, Corning Building Company, Empire Bricks, Hector Wine Company, and Apple Ridge Senior Living.
Here we are, hour number 2 of Frankly Speaking, as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. I'm your host, Frank Acom. Thank you for being a part of the broadcast this morning. We have a lot to cover in this hour. We do have some updates on the media. We have a few things here about Congress and as well as President-elect Donald Trump. But as I had mentioned in the last hour, Governor Hochul yesterday kind of piqued some interest because she called for an end to the Electoral College while presiding over New York, casting its 28 electoral votes for president and vice president on Albany on Tuesday. I thought this conversation would die down a little bit after Trump won the popular vote, but apparently not. Again, we had former Congressman Joe Sempolinski on the program a few weeks ago. He was very clear saying that he supports the Electoral College. If you look at it without the Electoral College, you're seeing New York City and California being the biggest focus in not only elections, but also throughout the year, because that's where the focus will be from presidents running for re-election, right? So rural areas will suffer. There's many other reasons for it. But Governor Hochul, who weighs in on things very often in an interesting way that doesn't always land or hit the mark. How about that? For instance, coming off the heels of the controversy of President Joe Biden calling Trump voters garbage, and that was at uproar, and then you had certain celebrities saying certain things, and certain hosts saying certain things, Mark Cuban saying certain things, that intelligent, strong women don't support Trump. You know, there was a lot of talk about this, and it was right before Election Day, so people were saying, wow, you can't keep insulting voters. Then Governor Hochul, who considers herself maybe a mover and a shaker in the Democrat Party, said that anybody who voted for Republicans is anti-American and anti-woman. Now, that should have made national attention, but to show that she does not have that star power she believes she has, it did not get the national attention. It was actually quite, and I don't think it was a media cover-up. I think it just wasn't, in their mind, relevant or newsworthy, because she isn't, well, there's a reason why she was speaking at the DNC in that horrible time slot and then bombed it, unfortunately. But she said the Electoral College does not contribute to the overriding objectives set forth in our great Constitution. We the people forming a more perfect union, and I strongly believe that the people of New York State and the United States of America should and must have their votes counted equally, and that the popular vote should prevail. It's time to amend the Constitution and relegate the institution of the Electoral College to the history books. The office of President of the United States is elected by each state's electoral votes, who go to the candidate who won the popular vote in that state rather than a national popular vote. Each state's number of electoral votes equals the size of its congressional delegation. That's why we have 28 votes. Now, this, I don't want to go through the whole history of this, because there's been some pretty nasty rhetoric about the Electoral College. It was confusing, and I thought this would be the year where it was kind of dropped, and it'll come back again when, for instance, a Democrat wins the popular vote but loses the Electoral College vote. But this year, of course, we know in that landslide election for Donald Trump, where he not only won the Electoral College, he won the popular vote. So I thought maybe it would go away, meaning because he would have won either way. But continuing, Hochul said, this convoluted process also leads candidates for president to spend an enormous amount of time in a few swing states rather than appealing to the voters of our entire country. I would say I'm different on what she's saying there. It's quite the opposite. If there is no Electoral College, you will have the laser-like focus of all candidates on New York City, California, and any of the big cities, because that's where the most votes would come from. And that would translate to 4 years focus on that before re-election. So the rural areas suffer, the swing states, the flyover states, as many in the media and many in politics demeaningly call those states. It would it would not put any type of focus on them, and it would not cause a presidential candidate to make decisions based on, or a president to make decisions based on their needs as well. Speaking of presidential elections, Cindy Adams, who is a gossip reporter and has been for a very, very long time with the New York Post, she claims, and this is just a passing note, you're probably the first place you'll hear it other than the New York Post right here. She is saying that she's hearing rumors that none other than former congressman, former chief of staff to Barack Obama, former mayor of Chicago, and soon to be former ambassador to Japan, Rahm Emanuel, is exploring a run for president. Now, do you recall Rahm Emanuel? He's got that background. His brother's a big wig entertainment and media agent. He was known for kind of his filthy mouth, the things that he would say, his cursing and his cussing, and his kind of aggressive style. Not overly successful as mayor of Chicago. But this poses the question, and I would ask you, and he could very well be exploring a run for president. People are saying Harris is exploring a run for president again. That many are. Right now, the field is wide open, and you do have to start planning for a campaign that large, that big. So he's thinking of running for president. But wouldn't that go against the thought, and this was being pushed by CNN's and some mainstream media, that Trump's win kind of signals the end of the Obama era, the Obama kind of legacy, which is, you had Obama, then you had Biden, Harris, of course, coming from Biden, that the people behind the scenes all were the people that were with Obama, essentially. So they're saying that Trump's win was the end of that era and that new blood. And I think it was David Axelrod who said that Obama would agree that it's time to move on, younger, fresher faces, maybe new ideas, fresh blood. So that would kind of go against, if he were to run and were to be successful in the primary or in the general, that would go against that theory. So your thoughts on that. Now, we're going to talk about the media here for a little bit, because there's some breaking news there. We had the revelation, if you will, that George Stephanopoulos was forced to issue, not really an apology, but an issue of regret on how he dealt with talking about Trump, and that ABC had to pay, $15 million and gave it to Trump's presidential library, and $1 million for his lawyer fees. So there's a lot of media personalities who are getting concerned because of how they played kind of fast and loose with fact checking, or fast and loose in what they've said about Donald Trump. So there are some concerns. And then we learned yesterday that Donald Trump got a lawsuit going against that pollster in Iowa, and the poll was so historically wrong, but suggesting that it's election interference. So people that are Trump supporters are saying that this is him trying to clean up the media, and it's not, this kind of retribution that the media calls it, or this kind of vindictiveness. It's quite the opposite. It's time to kind of rein in the news media and no longer allow the bias to be presented as hard facts. And we saw it with the fact checking during the debate, where they admitted, and they didn't look at it as a negative. So admitted kind of sounds biased or a strongly worded word. They didn't see it as anything negative. So I use the term admitted, but that they only practiced fact checking Donald Trump, that they would never practice fact checking Harris, and had no intention of fact checking Harris, even at times when she brought up things like Project 2025, which were easily debunked, that they could have, to even make themselves look somewhat fair. They didn't do it because they had not practiced, but they'd practiced every scenario they could think of with Donald Trump. So there's a lot of examples of bias. I think there's someplace else that Trump has tried to clean house, and I can't remember where it was, because I know there was an Iowa pollster, which there is something suspicious there, because it comes out that he's losing in Iowa according to this poll. That should not happen. He should have won Iowa easily, which he ultimately did. I think 16 points or 13 points over Harris. But that was used by the media and others to try to dissuade Trump voters from going out to vote, or to kind of discourage them right before Election Day. Historically, polls have been used for that. But this one was so glaringly wrong that he believes that it was election interference. And we brought this all to you yesterday, so we don't have to get all into it. But yes, but here are the numbers. She showed that in Iowa that Harris was going to win by 3 points. Trump ultimately won by 13 points. And the lawsuit claims that poll was meant to harm his campaign. Though legal scholar Clay Calvert told NBC News that the odds of Trump prevailing in this case are slim to none, he said the president-elect is likely pursuing it as part of a strategy to intimidate the media. That's the kind of common trend from the media. But he did, as I mentioned, he did have some wins. He sued George Stephanopoulos, won that. And also going after CBS, which he recently sued for $10 billion, claiming it edited his pre-election 60 Minutes interview with Harris to deceive voters. That'll be interesting to see where that goes, so we can maybe finally get the actual transcript from that interview, which they have refused to release. But speaking of the media, there's MSNBC host Stephanie Ruhle yesterday described a moment during her interview with President Biden back in May of 2023, where his team attempted to shut down the interview right after she asked about the indictment of his son, Hunter Biden, and how that could affect his presidency. It's interesting to get a look behind the scenes now that it's all over but the shouting, now that the election is over. This would never have come out before the election. In the way of traditional media, the White House runs the show. When I interviewed President Biden, they gave me 10 minutes, okay? A politician can knock out one answer in 15 minutes. That's very true. I would agree with the rule on that. At minute 9.5, I asked the president, your son Hunter might be indicted by your Department of Justice. How will this impact your presidency? When the interview aired, the Biden aide's interruption did not appear, but according to a transcript, as reported by Mediaite, there was crosstalk noted after that question. Ruhle asked the president to repeat his answer, citing issues with audio. A completely reasonable question. As soon as I said those words, President Biden's team waved in front of the camera, started screaming and yelling, and stopped the interview. Now that immediately went on. That's public record. That was in the transcript. That became its own story, and then they punished us. When the interview aired, Ruhle asked about Hunter at the end of the interview, and the president is heard responding, first of all, my son has done nothing wrong. I trust him. I have faith in him. It impacts my presidency by making me feel proud of him. Prior to her asking Hunter, MSNBC's footage does show his team trying to end the interview after Ruhle asked about hate crimes being on the rise, gun violence, and more. Anyway, kind of an interesting look, and then they're punished. MSNBC, and there was some criticism of this year by Democrats to mainstream media outlets on the regular protect them and defend them. Now you're seeing the early stages of how to go after Trump, whether it's talking about the enemies list, and now it's turned, because there is no Trump's enemies list, to preemptive pardons by Biden. So creating an enemy list that Trump didn't create. I know that gets a little confusing, but because there is no actual enemies list, what they have been forced to do is say, well, because Trump's probably going to go after these people, we need preemptive pardons. So it keeps that in the news, keeps that in the back of your mind as a viewer. That he is going to be vindictive. Now you're seeing, well, you saw from Biden and others, they're pushing the message that, no, the economy is actually really good and that Trump's going to be inheriting an amazing economy. So, when he starts seeing a good economy in the next 4 years and starts talking about it, that's all lost. That's all lost. That's the Biden administration. You're seeing that. And now Americans may have to actually brace for stagflation with Trump tariffs. That's according to CNN. I ask you this as a completely unbiased question. Do you ever recall seeing articles like this when perhaps Biden got elected or Obama got elected? When Biden was pushing the Inflation Reduction Act that had nothing to do with inflation, he even admitted that himself, or when he pushed the bipartisan infrastructure law. Did you ever see that this could cause stagflation? This could cause an uptick in inflation? Of course not. There's a presumption of everything there on that side is good. It's going to end up being good. When it comes to Trump, everything's going to be bad. So now you better brace. You may have to actually brace for stagflation with the Trump tariffs. Okay, no more to report on that. Just not having anything to report on themselves, they create a narrative that the economy is going to be bad under Trump because of tariffs. that you better brace for stagflation. You may have to embrace for stagflation. Again, it's very much like I talked about on election night, where if you watch the mainstream media, you were assumed to be a Harris voter. I found it really interesting, actually. You were assumed to be a Harris voter because you would tune in and they'd say, well, this is what she needs to do to win. Don't worry yet. And I'm going, that's interesting. Why wouldn't you just present this as the numbers? Why don't you just present this as Trump's here, Harris is here? But that's the same here. There's a presumption that the economy or that the policies that Trump enacts are going to be bad. That is going to be a talking point as we near January 20th. A few other updates on the media when we come back. I realize right now I'm running just a tad bit late. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
Hot tubs, hot tubs, hot tubs. Final 4 days of the year at Hesselson's Arnott Mall location near Center Court this Thursday through Sunday. No reasonable offer refused. Plus, 0% interest-free financing options for up to 60 months. And free delivery and takeaway of your old hot tub. Save $1,000, $3,000, even $5,000 off Hesselson's already low prices on their American Whirlpool hot tubs and swim spas. Why wait? Everything must be sold. Come in early for the best selection and start making every day better. And remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
Football show breaks down all things NFL. GMFB Overtime.
Check out top highlights, player interviews, special guests, and everything in between. 5 days a week.
GMFB Overtime. It's football for everyone.
I'm Nancy O'Dell. This is Crime Expose.
It's chilling, taunting.
We knew exactly who it was.
Blood stains on her shorts.
See you in September.
Welcome to Frankly Speaking, talking to the people that affect your life, that affect all of our day-to-day lives. This is something you're not going to get anywhere else. We've got a lot to offer. There'll be a lot of news, local, regional, national, really the things that affect you. And I think you'll be glad that you tuned in. So think of it as radio on TV. Frankly Speaking, live, 2 hours long, starting at 6 a.m. on WYDC TV Big Fox. This is history making. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact Boss Security for all your business and home security needs. Thank you for joining us as we broadcast live from the Hesselson's studio. We're going to be talking about the media here in just a moment, but we got a comment from Ken in Horseheads. Thank you, Ken. I think it is, right? Yeah. He has his theory, his take, if you will, on the drones. He says, thinking about how the drones are monopolizing the news cycle, it sure is, isn't it? And as you may have surmised, having a deep distrust of the Democrats' deep state and legacy media, that meaning Ken, I wonder if the drone issue is being intentionally pushed forward to cover for other news. Like a magician, look over here and pay no attention to what my other hand is doing. There isn't a lot of talk on the mostly missing president. The fact that Trump already seems like the acting president. I know there is a little coverage of that, Ken, and it's interesting because it's done in going back to how the media assumes things. It's coming from a point of anger that, okay, there's one thing to have a lame duck president. It's another thing to have essentially ceded power to Trump. So it is driving many in the media up the walls. But continuing with what Ken had to say, the type of criminals that have been given the 1,500 plus Oh, pardons and commuting their sentences. Yes. There wasn't a lot of info other than the sheer numbers. They kept bringing up the sheer numbers, but not a lot of substance. Selling taxpayer purchased steel wall panels at pennies on the dollar to try and slow down any new border wall. That, and Trump called it borderline. Was that the word he used? Now, ironically, I don't think it is, because that would be kind of a pun. He called it, did he? He might have called it borderline or bordering on a criminal act. And if you did not hear the story, almost in this kind of petty move, because obviously Trump has always talked about building the wall. There were supplies for building the wall that had been purchased during the Trump administration that Biden's administration is now selling at government auction for pennies on the dollar to try to thwart the building of the wall. But as Trump said, it's still going to happen. You're just now costing taxpayers more money. So instead of us using these resources we bought at a much lower price before inflation hit, you are now forcing us to buy this product during inflation for this petty move that ultimately, again, as normal, the taxpayers suffer. Continuing, I always do this with your comments, Ken. I interject too much. Continuing, working to get contracts in place to stop DOGE from cutting costs. Yes, and we saw that union contract with the Social Security office. 42,000 employees allowed to work from home. Continuing, pardoning the 2 Chinese spies convicted of industrial espionage. Pardoning a Chinese pedophile. I did not hear about that one specifically. And whatever else we haven't heard about in the recent news cycles. Yes, the list can go on and on. Those are just the things we know a little bit about. I'm sure there are things that we don't know about that are being covered by drone coverage right now. And it is pretty much wall-to-wall coverage of drones. But not here. Well, of course we cover it because that's what is necessary from a program like this. But we move on to stories you may not hear elsewhere. The LA Times owner, speaking of the media and Trump and speaking somewhat to what Ken is saying, the LA Times owner, Patrick Soon-Shiong, has told his editorial board to, quote, take a break from writing about Trump. Interesting. Dr. Patrick Soon-Shiong, the physician and entrepreneur who bought the Times, the LA Times, back in 2018, has rankled staffers of the paper with his, quote, meddling and editorial matters, which has become more pervasive than previously realized, media reporter Oliver Darcy said in a statement. It is reported that he has taken a number of previously unreported steps designed to rein in Trump-related commentary. And we saw this during the election where Jeff Bezos told the Washington Post, hey, guys, because he owns, that you got to settle down on the way this is covered. We don't want to endorse a candidate because then that is, again, putting that label of bias on us and has caused an outrage and an uproar behind the scenes because that's how the media normally operates, that they don't want to be told, obviously, what to do. Last week, the New York Times reported that Soon-Shiong blocked his newspaper from publishing an editorial that argued the Senate should follow its traditional process for confirming cabinet picks rather than allow Trump to make recess appointments. The editorial, which bore the headline, Donald Trump's cabinet choices are not normal, the Senate's confirmation process should be, did not run. His hands-on involvement in the editorial decision of his newspaper has been much broader in scope than spiking that op-ed. They received a memo signed by several members of the opinion section who accused their boss of having instituted a new policy that prohibits editorials containing criticism of the president-elect unless they are presented side by side with another opinion piece presenting the opposing view. I don't know. Is that a negative restriction? I don't know. I mean, I think to Jeff Bezos' point about editorial boards endorsing a candidate, it just creates that, at least that idea that there's bias. Even if they don't believe there is, it creates that idea that there's bias. In this situation, if you have an op-ed that says Trump's bad and an op-ed right next to it that says Trump's good or Biden's bad, Biden's good, I don't see how that's a negative thing. But according to Oliver Darcy and others in the media, that is too heavy-handed of approach. Now, CNN's Jim Acosta, and this is just our media update here, during Frankly Speaking for just a moment. I got to take a short break. I'm going to tell you what Jim Acosta had to say, talk a little bit more about George Stephanopoulos and that $16 million defamation suit, tie that in with a piece from Michael Goodwin, and then showing you kind of the state of the country in a couple of various ways that are kind of concerning when it comes to the divide based on politics. But let's take that break before we run too late. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us.
When kids don't have access to essential health care, it can negatively impact their physical and emotional health.
Ready or not, here I come.
That's why Excellus Blue Cross Blue Shield is working to make quality care more accessible with specialized programs and plans for the needs of all families. So every child, every hide-and-seeker, everybody benefits.
Trust your child to Dr. Joshua Henches at Watkins Glen Family Dentistry. Buffalo graduate and member of the American and New York Dental Associations, Dr. Henches offers treatment in all areas of general dentistry, including same-day crowns, implants, root canals, oral surgery, and Sure Smile orthodontics. Trust Dr. Henches and his staff for the best dental care in the region. Visit our office at 703 South Decatur Street in Watkins Glen, or visit us online at watkinsglenfamilydentistry.com. The holiday season has arrived, a time where more than ever our thoughts turn gratefully to those who serve our community and those all around us. May the holiday season end the present year on a cheerful note and make way for a fresh and bright new year. Here's wishing you a happy holidays. This holiday greeting is brought to you by our friends at Tom South Corning Collision, Sheddon's Wholesale, Suburban Propane, Corning Building Company, Empire Bricks, Hector Wine Company, and Apple Ridge Senior Living.
When I was in law school, my father had to stop working when he developed early Alzheimer's. Social Security disability benefits saved my parents financially. I'm Peter Gorton of Lockman & Gorton. Now I'm a lawyer who helps people when they need Social Security disability. If you can't work, I'd like to help.
For a free consultation, call Lockman & Gorton toll-free 1-800-698-0567.
Looks like y'all got a lot of stuff here in your water.
You're never gonna believe it, but this can filter up to 60 different contaminants from your water.
It's all about cleaner drinking water.
Dude, that's good water.
And that's good water.
Now that's good water.
That's good water, eh?
No matter where you live, there's a Culligan water expert nearby. At Culligan, we think about your water, so you don't have to.
Call today to schedule your free water test.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. I'm your host, Frank Aiken. We're talking about a couple media updates just quickly and then into some other news of the day. During yesterday's CNN's newsroom, Jim Acosta called on media outlets to stand firm against President-elect Donald Trump's efforts to use the legal system to hold the press accountable. It isn't this interesting, obviously, at a time when we talk so much about lawfare and going after your political opponent, as they did with the former president, now President-elect Donald Trump. Now there seems to be this concern of using the legal system, with kind of a hypocritical there in a way. But in this case, it is to rein in what Donald Trump has believed to be an unfair and biased media attack on him. And obviously that proved to be the case with that $16 million defamation suit against George Stephanopoulos with that win. But Acosta told Brian Stetler, the media should not have to worry, quote, about this sort of stuff. I just wonder, Brian, what this is going to mean for news organizations, for tech companies. We're going to talk about the implications for tech companies in a moment, but it seems to me that there's a lot of this bending the knee going on. And I'm sure the folks over at ABC will say that that's just not the case. But I just feel, and I wonder how you feel about that aspect of all of this. I mean, to me, well, this is the best kind of interviewers, whose questions are longer than the guests' answers. I mean, to me, it seems this is the time for our industry to stand firm. And we're going to have a very important job to do. And that's not putting us on a pedestal or anything like that, but we're going to have a very important job to do, because Trump is not going to change his ways when he gets back in the Oval Office. He's going to continue to say the things that need to be fact-checked. And you can't have the news industry worrying about this sort of stuff when they're just simply doing their jobs. So, I mean, the argument, first of all, you are putting yourself on a pedestal, but that's what the media typically does. They just like they're in a bubble politically, they're very much in a bubble in their world, and that they have the most important job, as he's saying here, that they are going to have to go after the president, essentially, because he's not going to change who he is, and that he needs to be fact-checked, as if they haven't learned enough about these fact-checks, especially how often they the fact-checks have to be fact-checked and corrected, right? But putting themselves up on the pedestal again, because we're important. We've got the most important job going on right now. So you need to stand firm. Stetler responded, well, if some bend the knee, others have to stand up straighter. You know, the former Time magazine editor Richard Sengel said this morning, Trump has sued dozens of publications and media outlets in the past, trying to, quote, intimidate the press into self-censorship, not to actually win in any particular case. He did win, in this case, with a big payment. But that broader concern about self-censorship is one that I know many viewers and readers are worried about. And ultimately, Jim, as you know, we work for them. We work for the viewers, not for anybody else. So this idea that they will self-censor, I don't believe that to be the case. I don't believe they're concerned. Someone like Brian Stetler isn't concerned if his employer gets sued, because it's the employer ultimately ending up paying that. But to say that they're innocent in a way is what Jim Acosta was alleging here, that they're innocent, that they're just doing their jobs, doesn't play well when you look at the $16 million defamation suit that ABC lost because of Trump attempting to rein in the media's bias. According to a source inside ABC, the New York Post is reporting that George Stephanopoulos is apologetic and humiliated by the network's decision to pay $16 million in that lawsuit. We know all the details of why the lawsuit came about. One source said that George is defiant. Now, this is an interesting thing about the media, because George Stephanopoulos is portrayed as a news reporter, though we know that he worked for the Clinton administration, that there's obviously those political leanings and those political bias, which is fine, just be forthcoming with it. Not presenting him as a right-down-the-line news reporter. But a third source said Stephanopoulos is a very guarded person. His circle of trust is so small, and a lot of them don't work at ABC anymore. He has deactivated his X account, where he had more than 2.3 million followers. We know that. Do you think, out of curiosity, so ABC paid $15 million, and that money is going to the Trump Presidential Library. Do you think Trump at that point puts a brick at his library, like, you know, a lot of times they raise funds by putting bricks or names up on a wall at a presidential library? Will that say George Stephanopoulos on one of those bricks? I really hope so. If that's one of the way he goes about fundraising. But I see that there was something I remember with Reagan, and it was after the fact that Reagan Library was built, but you could help to keep it up. I think it was a brick that you could buy on a certain walkway, or it was on a certain wall. You could have your name. So I say you do that, and the first brick be George Stephanopoulos. Some ABC News staffers fumed at management for keeping a tight lid on coverage of the settlement. It was front page news everywhere, yet ABC doesn't report on itself. I always think that's a very bad look. I would agree there. I think that's something that has to be addressed if you want to maintain credibility. Now, you could make the argument ABC has lost credibility in other ways and may not have the credibility, but I think that to stay credible, there does need to be reporting on things that don't always reflect the greatest on you, just like when they don't talk as much about perhaps a Disney product, only in promotion, but not in a negative way because of their connection to Disney. 3 sources told the Post that morale is down after a series of layoffs in all departments. The settlement is another gut punch, one of the sources said. It's sheer level embarrassment. People are furious. This wasn't a news division decision. It was a company decision. They likely didn't want to go through discovery when you search all the documents and all the emails and find everything that's said and turn it over to the other side. That's where you could have trouble, because you could have comments being made about to maybe further expose that bias and further expose that anti-Trump mindset in the newsroom. Now, Stephanopoulos is not commenting on this, but he did have to release that letter of regret, a joint statement. ABC News and George Stephanopoulos regret statements regarding President Donald J. Trump made during an interview by George Stephanopoulos with Representative Nancy Mace on ABC's This Week on March 10th, 2024, said the statement. But Michael Goodwin, and I pose this question to you, Michael Goodwin makes the point that the left-wing media created their own crisis, and now they have to pay the price for repeatedly attacking Donald Trump, talking about a newsroom that is being driven by bias. And now that is being questioned, and with lawsuits coming up, it's becoming more expensive for them to be as biased. Recent days have reconfirmed that the war against Donald Trump is their most erroneous assault on truth and fairness, but it was hardly their first or only. And we could go through it. He does a great job, Michael Goodwin, for the New York Post. And he gives about 3 pages of examples of recent stories that show this kind of bias, and not just in regards to Trump or Republicans, just in general, kind of like that story we brought to you with CNN wanting to get that clickbait article, how they freed a prisoner in Syria. It turns out they were duped by that prisoner who wasn't a prisoner at all, but was a known Assad torturer. But they were so quick to get that story out so that they could get the kind of the clickbait and what they deemed to be probably an award-winning broadcast for what they had done, and quite the opposite, turning out to have egg on their face and confirming that they had made an error. So he uses that as an example, and some of the other examples as of late. But he then points to Donald Trump, who is going after, in this instance, ABC. When I say going after, through lawsuits for what proved to be a rightful case. They, of course, settled, giving him $15 million for the library, $1 million for legal fees. Now we know that he's going to sue the Iowa pollster and the Des Moines Register for election interference, that pollster and Selzer, who released that poll just 3 days before the election that showed that Harris was up 3 points, when, of course, he ended up defeating her by 13, calling it election interference. So the Selzer poll, according to Trump, wasn't an honest mistake, but was intentional and designed to influence the outcome. Selzer and the Register have denied the charge, but her explanation for the giant size of her mistake is less than persuasive. According to Semaphore, she suggested her poll might have served to energize and activate Republican voters, trying to suggest that no, it actually helped Trump, not hurt. So the fights over editorial endorsements was a big issue, and this is, again, just pointing to the bias. He also said Monday that Trump, that is, he was suing CBS for deceptive editing a 60 Minutes interview with Harris and author Bob Woodward over a dispute involving audio tapes. We have to straighten out the press, President-elect Donald Trump said. The press is very corrupt, almost as corrupt as our elections. I'm doing this not because I want to. I'm doing this because I feel I have an obligation to. And I really hope that some of these edited interviews do come out. For instance, the one that they showed a different answer for their promo than was given on the actual night of the broadcast on 60 Minutes. That is something that I think needs to be exposed, just to see how bad that edit was and how much we're looking at behind the scenes when it comes to the media bias. But Michael Goodwin says, personally, I wish the suits weren't necessary. And I think that's a very good point. And that the owners and editors of big media would return to the era of strict standards of fairness and a clear separation between news and opinion. But with the rise of an unrestrained social media and with the intense hatred of Trump that is expressed by many leftist journalists being rewarded with Pulitzers and other awards, there are few reasons to hope change will happen quickly or even voluntarily. Thus, Trump's legal war may be the only corrective that has a chance of success. What a pity. Very good point. Look at all these waves coming in. Sorry, I got distracted. We got to take a short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
I'm Jonathan Lawson. If you're 50 to 85, please listen closely. The lock I want to talk to you about isn't the one on your door. It's a rate lock for your life insurance that guarantees that once you're insured, your rate can never go up at any time for any reason. Many policies you see don't have one, but you can get a lifetime rate lock from Colonial Penn. This plan was designed for people on a fixed income with coverage options that start at $9.95 a month. That's less than 35 cents a day. Your rate is locked in for life. Coverage can never be canceled, and your acceptance is guaranteed. You cannot be turned down because of your health. See for yourself. Call for an information kit and gift. Both are free with no obligation.
Call 1-800-781-9990 for your free information and your free gift. That's 1-800-781-9990. 1-800-781-9990. Call now.
I'm Nancy O'Dell. This is Crime Expose.
It's chilling, taunting.
We knew exactly who it was.
Blood stains on her shorts.
See you in September.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We've got a few comments from viewers as we broadcast live from the Hesselson's studio here on Market Street in Corning. Let's get right to them. You brought up the border wall materials are being auctioned off for pennies on the dollar. I saw where Texas officials were buying it and saving for the new Trump administration. God bless Texas. It has to be tough to be on the Democrat fan club these days. If that's the case, I had not heard about those Texas officials. That's a great idea. I had thought something that maybe President-elect Donald Trump would do so as well, because you were talking about these materials being sold, as you said, for pennies on the dollar in a way to kind of hinder Trump's building of the wall. Now, the problem is, like Trump said, and why he believes it's criminal, is not because it hinders the chances of building the wall. It's because it just increases the cost to taxpayers. Because when that material was bought, it was bought during the Trump administration, obviously, when prices were down, when there wasn't the inflation. So now to sell them, lose money, and then have to buy them at a more expensive cost, well, it's very much Washington in general, because it's not their money, right? So this idea of spending and losing money does not concern them. It does not become a part of their rationale. Next up, comment from a different viewer. I really like that Trump is going after the media. Perhaps they will think twice about showing so much bias. It was an excellent idea for him, meaning Trump, to use their, meaning the media's, own money to fund Trump's library. Yes, isn't that fascinating? The irony in that. And that's why I think George Stephanopoulos obviously so angry about ABC settling on this, because as they said, it wasn't a news decision, it was a corporate decision. But that is essentially what is happening, that the media, who has been so biased and angry against him for so long, is paying for his presidential library. As this viewer went on to say, and this is a suggestion or a comment that I had made, it would be an excellent touch to add a brick with George Stephanopoulos' name on it. Yes, I think so too. Kind of like the house that Ruth built. Well, it's the house that the media built. There is something very ironic, and I'm sure Trump finds some type of what's the word? The reason I went to the library, I'm sure, is because he gets some type of kind of a kick out of it. That the media will help pay for his library. Okay, this is a couple of troubling, if you will, stories showing you really the divide in this country. I meant to mention this during... No, okay. Young Americans. This is an Emerson College poll that recently came out. That actually came out this morning, I believe, or late yesterday. This poll from Emerson College suggests that more young people believe that Luigi Mangione's assassination of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson was acceptable than don't. More young people think that vigilantism was acceptable than think it was bad. As we've talked about the divide, as we've talked about college campuses radicalizing students, hence the reason for waves on the street for a cold morning. Hence the reason why we've seen such anti-Semitic protests on college campuses, because of this radicalization. Obviously, when it comes to quote-unquote Big Pharma, there's always a hate over Big Pharma, except for that one period where Big Pharma was the heroes during COVID, and you couldn't question them, and you couldn't question anything regarding the vaccine, which was just interesting, because there was such a hatred for Big Pharma, and there still is. But there's that one little window where they were really celebrated. And there's also the hatred that's being pushed by the media and college campuses for CEOs and what they make. So, according to the survey of 1,000 registered voters, 41% of 18 to 29-year-olds believe that the murder of Thompson was either somewhat or completely acceptable. That's 41%, with 24% falling into the former and 17% falling into the latter. So 17% believing it's completely acceptable. 33% of the same cohort believes that the murder was completely unacceptable, and an additional 7 believe it was somewhat unacceptable. 19 were neutral, which is, it could kind of go into the acceptable category, couldn't it? I didn't realize we were running so late. I want to talk just a tad bit more on this, but I'll tie in with another topic I have about the division in this country. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Hey, pal. Ready for bed?
Hey, Dad, do we really have the fastest internet speeds?
Yeah, with Spectrum, absolutely.
Oh, that's cool. Can I use that to research volcanoes super fast?
Of course.
Can I learn to make a diorama super fast?
Yeah, you can do that too.
How fast exactly?
The absolute fast. When's your project due?
Tomorrow morning.
Once you're done. Okay. I'll get the glue.
The fastest internet whenever you need it. From Spectrum.
Wow, you found it.
I did.
The History of Water Part 6? I've been dying to read this.
I know, honey.
I always wanted that book.
At Culligan, we get that most people don't think about water like we do, and that's okay. You see, when we install one of our high-efficiency water softeners, we're thinking about hard water and limescale buildup, so you can just think about longer-lasting appliances and softer skin and hair. At Culligan, we think about your water, so you don't have to.
Call today to schedule your free water test.
Now leave home and leave the tanks behind with Inogen, the portable oxygen concentrator that moves with you.
This little box changed my life. I can now do all those things that I want to do. You just press the button here, and there's my oxygen.
Inogen portable oxygen systems are small and light and deliver up to 12 hours of medical-grade oxygen on a single charge.
Now that I've got my Inogen, I've got my freedom back. I'm back to living again.
Try an Inogen system free for 14 days. Call now.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security. Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studios. We wrap things up on this morning's edition of Frankly Speaking. So young Americans, as I mentioned, believe that Brian Thompson's murder was acceptable. I did want to, before we move on to our next story, mention that 18 to 29 grouping, which if you look at the age group, that speaks to the radicalization on college campuses and the education system, the same reason why we're seeing that anti-Semitism on college campuses. But it was, just to clarify, was the only age demographic in which a plurality deemed the assassination acceptable. And every other one, a majority said it was unacceptable. So just keeping that in mind. But now, because of this division in this country, there is a real estate platform. This guy has like kind of scary for other reasons and privacy issues as well. But a real estate platform will show neighborhoods political leanings to prospective home buyers. A new real estate platform will allow users to look at the political leanings of the different areas to which they might consider moving. The tool is being launched by a tech startup and will initially be available in South Florida and New York City. Users will be able to see consumer and political data for each block drawn from election results, campaign contributions, and licensable commercial data. It will also show average housing trends. Wow. The survey that they did at Realtor.com showed that 38% of respondents believe their political views align with those of their neighbors, and that 17% have considered moving over such differences, actually selling your house, putting it on the market, and moving somewhere because the neighbors might have a different political opinion. Baby boomers, it says the figure rose to 28% for millennials, with 1/3 of members of that demographic saying their decision of where to live is highly influenced by politics. Baby boomers were on the other side, with 16% of respondents giving that answer. That's how divided we are in this country. As we've talked about public safety so much on this program, yes, it's getting towards the end of the show, so this is where I'm going to start rushing through a lot of the stories I meant to get to, but it's been such a busy news morning, and I thank you again for joining us. We've talked about public safety, and that's one of the reasons, tying back in with what we talked about with Governor Hochul. Governor Hochul struggled, though ultimately was victorious in her run for governor against Lee Zeldin, because Lee Zeldin was laser-like focused on the issue of public safety, which we know, poll after poll shows, is a major concern for residents of New York. One of the many reasons why people, high taxes, public safety, are leaving the state, unfortunately, in a mass exodus. So public safety is a major issue here, but it is throughout all the country, and it played an important role in the presidential election. And I think it was very similar to inflation, where people, the politicians would say, there's no problem with public safety. And then you see maybe you were affected by it personally because of bail reform here in New York, or maybe you saw the news coverage of the local pharmacy being raided by people looting and stealing. But most of the time, it was something that affected most people in their day-to-day life, public safety. Same with inflation. They said, never mind, there is no inflation problem, never mind what you're feeling, and then you go to the grocery store and you realize you're broke at the end of the day. So the same with public safety. Here's another example where they were telling us not to worry about it, but Walmart and their employees are now going to be wearing body cameras. Now, this comes at a time, and this has been a major news story and something we talked about, where in many instances, if you go in to get basic necessities, you have to have a representative come over and unlock the cabinet. It's getting to the point in some stores where you really would need a kind of a personal shopper, if you will, to come with you and say, all right, Walmart employee, let's go through the aisles and you unlock everything I need. So you think about the stress factor that adds to the Walmart employee, who's perhaps not, maybe working at a minimum wage level, which is not knocking that at all, but saying that they're, at some point they say, why am I dealing with this stress and put myself into situations where I could be violently attacked or attacked for trying to defend Walmart? Why do that when I can work at a McDonald's, something like that? So that goes with its own concerns about safety. But Walmart has started giving store-level associates body cameras to wear as part of a pilot program at some of its U.S. locations. It's not clear how many of Walmart stores have the recording devices, but some locations now have signs at entry points warning shoppers that it has body-worn cameras in use. In at least one store in Denton, Texas, an associate checking receipts was seen wearing a yellow and black body camera earlier this month, according to a shopper who shared a photo. Quote, while we don't talk about the specifics of our security measures, we are always looking at new and innovative technology used across the retail industry. This is a pilot program that we are testing in one market, and we will evaluate the results before making any longer-term decisions. And perhaps you've seen it in your daily life, where if you do go to Walmart or certain big box stores, there are cameras around certain aisles specifically. If you do self-checkout, there are cameras there, or say you were being recorded. But now Walmart employees are wearing body cameras. So you can understand why we need to have that conversation about public safety. We got to take a short break and wrap up today's edition of Frankly Speaking, so stay with us. We will be right back.
Attention, Elmeron may lead to vision loss.
If you have suffered vision problems after taking Elmeron to treat bladder pain, call the Hearn Law Firm. Elmeron may be responsible for your vision problems, and you may deserve compensation for your injuries.
If you took Elmeron and now have vision problems, call the Hearn Law Firm at 888-308-3866 right now. You could find out if you qualify in less than 2 minutes. Call 888-308-3866 for your free case review.
The holiday season has arrived, a time where more than ever our thoughts turn gratefully to those who serve our community and those all around us. May the holiday season end the present year on a cheerful note and make way for a fresh and bright new year. Here's wishing you a happy holidays. This holiday greeting is brought to you by our friends at Tom South Corning Collision, Sheddon's Wholesale, Suburban Propane, Corning Building Company, Empire Bricks, Hector Wine Company, and Apple Ridge Senior Living.
Are you or someone you love at risk of falling in the home? Did you know 80% of home falls happen in the bathroom? If you are still stepping over a tub to take a shower, please call Bath Planet for a free design service. Our certified design team will take all the measurements and work with you to design a bathroom that never has to sacrifice style for safety. Go with the company that people trust. Bath Planet, 2 locations serving the entirety of the Twin Tiers. Call today.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. A couple comments from viewers. How do we ever connect again? It's disheartening to see how little ground we have gained. Understand your concern over that when we talk about people seeing where they want to move based on political affiliations. I'm not sure what the answer to that is. I think success, peace, and prosperity can maybe heal this divide. I think the media does help spark that divide as well through this bias that we talked about earlier. Another comment from a different viewer, almost out of time, so I can't comment on everything too much. Good morning, Frank. On the wall material sales, I'm thinking the Biden administration is incompetent as usual, not vetting the purchasers, and they're selling it to patriots who will soon be giving or selling it back to the Trump administration. Any other use of the material would be a publicity nightmare. Custom designed walls used anyplace else would make the news for sure. Thank you very much, Fred. Appreciate that. Okay, the spending bill to prevent the government shutdown has been unveiled. There is some concern. Speaker Johnson, with his deal making with Democrats, angered some conservatives. I don't know if this is just the beginning of them trying to cause more drama and trying to cause a showdown for Mike Johnson, because that, in their mind, that pays, just like a shutdown. I was talking about a shutdown pays as well. Hold on real quick. Congress also gives itself a raise with last-minute 1,547-page spending deal. The lame duck continuing resolution, unveiled just 3 days before a potential government shutdown, strips a provision included in its spending bills since 2009 to block automatic raises for Congress, effectively giving senators and House members a raise. Okay, we learned more about Nancy Pelosi's fall as she was wearing, quote, very high heels, then powered through pain for a photo even though she had a broken hip. That's according to GOP Representative McCall. And if you see that photo, she does look to be in pain. JFK has tried to soothe GOP angst on his abortion views as other Trump picks face scrutiny. He appears to be calming GOP nerves over his staunch pro-choice views, assuring Republican senators that he won't be an impediment to key priorities on abortion. Senate Armed Services Democrats argue that allegations against Hegseth should disqualify him from leading the Pentagon. So now allegations, no actual quote-unquote trial. That's the new precedent being set. And actually, sadly, that was done in the first Trump administration. All it takes is an allegation to derail someone's career. They're warning, the Senate is warning that it is going to be Brett Kavanaugh 2.0 when it comes to Pete Hegseth. Defense Department nominee Pete Hegseth's plan to release a woman who accused him of sexual assault from a confidentiality agreement sets the stage for a media circus that Senate Republicans are calling Kavanaugh 2.0, a reference to that brutal Supreme Court confirmation fight of 2018. Hegseth vigorously denies the allegation and says he's going to plow through the Senate confirmation process despite warnings from GOP senators that it's likely to get ugly. Senator John Cornyn saying, I told him it's going to be a miserable experience, sort of like Brett Kavanaugh's confirmation hearing. Senator John Fetterman, the Democrat, said, my vote for Trump's nominees will, quote, come from an open mind and an informed opinion. He seems to be more open-minded than most, and that in that party, we'll see where that ultimately ends. It's easy to say that on Twitter, but a vote day, it's a little different. He wrote that he believes it is appropriate and the responsibility of a United States senator to speak with Trump nominees. He's already met with Elise Stefanik. He seems supportive of Stefanik and Pete Hegseth. I believe it's appropriate and responsible for a U.S. Senator to have a conversation with President-elect Trump's nominees. We are out of time for today's edition of Frankly Speaking. Thank you to everyone who joined us. Please join us every weekday morning starting at 6 a.m. for Frankly Speaking, only on WYDC TV. Big Fox will see you tomorrow morning, bright and early. Look forward to it already.
Hustling, plus overbooked, plus bustling, plus cleaning overlooked. It all adds up. With Mary Maid's professional cleaning services, you'll have one less thing to worry about. Mary Maid's, relax, it's done. Hustling, plus too busy, plus bustling, plus in a tizzy. It all adds up. With Mary Maid's professional cleaning services, you'll have one less thing to worry about. Mary Maid's, relax, it's done.
Shop and compare. Shop and compare.
Shop and compare.
Times may change, but one thing stays the same.
Shop and compare.
You won't find a better deal. Guaranteed.
Shop and compare.
Come sit and sleep shop in Corning. Shop and compare.